Might be since clicked record right when you said that.
Yeah.
What's up, Brian?
How are you, Big Joe?
Oh man, I'm doing all right. It's I can hardly see the screen. It's so bright out here today. I was out putting together a bounce house and a rainbow sprinkler, 6 foot rainbow sprinkler for Jack. So
That's a
like
lucky boy.
it's dark. Yeah, he's
That's a lucky boy.
it's with all this mess that's going on right now, it has the silver lining. I was just talking to Zeb about this. Is I've got to spend so much time with Jack and my wife. And Laura's been super busy. She works from home, um, and so a lot of people in her company are not there anymore. So she's taking
Right.
a lot more work, and so usually
Yeah,
I
I want
wake
to have
up.
hair like you too. So we gotta.
You always look fresh, Brian. The beard. I've noticed quite a few people growing quarantine beards.
Corn beards. Yeah, that's what we have. Corn stash, corn beard.
Yeah. Hey.
So she's working super hard,
Yeah.
and obviously it's good for you guys that she has the ability to stay at home and work and be with you and Jack.
Yeah, so Jack, he goes to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually, until this, and then Tuesday and Thursday, my parents would pick him up, and I'd be at the blue chip office, but now, I can't go to the blue chip office. We're not sending him to school, and my grandma, who turned 96 yesterday, lives with my parents, so we're being really careful. Plus, with
Yeah,
Laura being pregnant, we're being super careful, and so we have Jack full time. Laura's working more than before, and I'm doing as much as I can, which it's kind of a mess because we just canceled some events. We're going to postpone them. What's going to happen to September, October, and December events? But we're healthy and we're safe. Um, I can't complain. There's people that are in a way more difficult position than I am. So yeah, we'll just get through it.
yeah.
But
I feel horrible for my family because I haven't really been home in 24 years, so they're having to deal with all of me every day, all the time, all of my quirks. Usually, they don't even get to see all my wacky quirks and my same jokes that work on everybody else. If I'd say them every day, they don't think it's funny, and I think they're funny.
they're
But if you say them 20 times a day, then I think they probably get old to them, not to me.
no, and I loved him about the 8 times a year we used to hang out. But here's one thing, Brian, I always love you because you're like the best announcer and you coach great wrestlers. But we were talking on the phone the other day, and one thing I know about you is you care about all your students at school. You care, a lot of people just see this wrestling side of you, but there's a lot more things that are important. And so tell me your role right now with like the online schooling and supporting parents and all the stuff you're doing right now.
So for the first time in 24 years, I didn't have a class that I taught. I got a job. It's a system of support advisor for the school. So I take kids and I put them in tiered interventions based on attendance, behavior, academics, social emotional, different things that we could do. So during the year, we were creating some pretty cool interventions for kids and finding ways for kids to be successful. It's a little more difficult when we do it with social distancing and distance learning because I can't be with them. I can't go to their classroom and check up on them. So there's a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of calling parents. Honestly, a lot of calling teachers because most teachers are super new at this and are not technically they don't know how to do online school. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of actors and we're animated, and just talking to a screen when you can't see your kids, it's difficult for a lot of teachers. So we're finding different avenues for them to be. I get on 3 to 4 Zoom calls a week with my team where we talk about leadership, or we just check in and see how they're doing and laugh and joke, and they tell me the same old gross wrestling jokes, and they like to see each other too because they can't see each other. So I actually step away from the camera a lot of times and let them just have fun and laugh and be disgusting on camera. I don't record it because I don't want that to be out there. But it's difficult for a lot of kids when they get their social at school, and we have a lot of kids that now they're having to take on a different role at home. Maybe it's babysitter. Maybe it's the person, mom and dad lost a job. They got to work. So it's a difficult community, and it's a difficult culture right now.
Yeah, certainly a lot of new people are learning a whole lot of a lot more skills right now, whether it be the teacher or the kid at home and taking on more responsibility. You know, I watched my mom go through. My mom, she teaches music theory. She's a professor at University of Missouri, Kansas City, and she's doing that at home now. And it was a process, you know, from day one to where she is today, like getting the audio right, getting the video right, trying to engage the kids right. And you know, same thing with Zeb. I was talking to Zeb Miller the other day. He's an outstanding teacher. His energy's great, and he struggles with it too because he wants to be in front of the kids and to engage with them face to face and trying to find ways to be as effective.
I mean, you can only do so much stance and motion at the house.
Yeah,
you know, changing your levels. I hit my head on tables. It's brutal.
Yeah.
But Zeb is the man. I watched you know, you guys talking, and I feel like I'm animated until I watch Zeb Miller and you talk to each other because it's awesome.
Yeah,
gets me all jacked up.
Zeb's the man.
He had the defense soap lined up.
Of course he did.
Always branded, baby. Always branded.
No, Zeb's amazing. He's amazing at what he does. Speaking of stance and motion, though, you should see my son. We wrestle a few times a day now, and although his elbows are way out, you know, he needs to get some red alert training. He grabs my leg. I put him on the angle and tell him to run his feet. Now he just does that automatically. It makes me so happy. It makes me so happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do that with my son, who's home right now, but he's 270 pounds, and he just kind of grabs me and I fall every time because I'm old.
Brian,
and
I saw him on the trampoline. Oh my gosh. That kid is agile, mobile, and hostile.
He is. And forever, the big brother, Tyler, was like the big one of the family and, you know, would push him around. And the other day, the roles reversed, and Alex got on Tyler a little bit.
Stinking little
and Tyler
brother,
was like,
man.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, stinking little brother. Tell me a little bit about the speed bump. You know, he's going through some interesting times, huh?
He is.
What's he say to you? You know, and give us a little background on why he's having
So Tyler started out at Lehigh, and it was he had shoulder surgery, and it wasn't academically, socially, emotionally, financially. It just wasn't the right place for him. Besides the coaching staff that's unbelievable, it just wasn't the right fit. So he went down to Old Dominion and was doing a great job and really enjoying his time wrestling and his time with the team. And of course, you know, out of the blue, we were outside working. Actually, we were cutting. So he was cutting some stuff down, and Mickey and I were out working, and he got a text from the athletic director. It said, "You need to get on a Zoom call at 4:30, the whole team." And of course, we're thinking to ourselves, "What the heck? Did something happen? Are they just going to give him kudos for having a great year? Did something happen with the coaches?" I don't think, in my mind, it ever came that they were going to drop the program. And so, you know, it's been a pretty good kick in the shorts. Probably, I would say 3/4 of the team is going somewhere else. And, you know, he's looking. He's had a couple of, you know, bites on the hook from a couple of D2 and D3 schools. A couple other schools that obviously I have good relationships with coaches, but you know, it's just heartbreaking because you finally get into a groove academically, socially, athletically, and you know the rug gets pulled out from under you. So it's been a really tough adjustment for him just to make a choice, and you know, especially once you're pretty solid in what you want to do.
Yeah, you said about 3/4 of the team. What a tough choice! Like, you know, for these guys, for anybody that's wrestling a place like Old Dominion, wrestling's been a huge part of their life. But you start to dig into your academics, your friends, what makes you feel good, and now having to make a decision on, you know, something's going to get left behind. I can't imagine. You know, it's like I couldn't even believe that happened. Then I saw that, they're already selling the wrestling mats. And,
just made me puke.
Just a dagger in the heart, especially, you know, a place like Old Dominion. Wrestling's one of their top sports.
We all know that.
Yeah.
And most people know that, but when it comes down to money, when it comes down to equivalency, when it comes down to Title IX compliance, when it comes down to, I think there's a lot of things that went into it that are way above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I'm not one to second guess anybody. And if it was the right thing for the university, that's what they do. But I would say the way that it was sold to the team, I don't know if it was as above board as it should have been. I think they could have approached it a little different. But again, above my pay grade, it's just hard for the kids.
It's tough. I'm worried now. Like, I saw what they're trying to pass, some kind of like legislation. I don't know. I can't speak a ton on it, but where D1 schools will try to drop from 16 total teams to 14.
Right.
And I just saw like UPenn. They're like, no, they didn't approve of that. So that's a good sign. But if that happens, how many programs are we going to lose? And
I think it's Olympic sports in general. I mean, if you're not football, basketball, and or a women's sport, you're in trouble. And even a lot of women's sports where if you're not football, basketball, or a top sport at the school, if they pass that legislation, it's not just going to be wrestling. It's going to be Olympic sports in general, and they're going to have to go to some type of, whether it's the club and the NCWA or whatever it is, but it's still expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a scary situation.
Yeah. Well, I hope whatever happens with Tyler, I hope he'll end up being happy, and he's a good kid, Brian. I don't have to tell you that. Wherever he goes, things are going to be okay. Good kid, good family.
So you're near Blue Springs, right?
Yeah, right next door.
So those two twin brothers, the two defensive tackles from Nebraska, they went to Blue Springs. They're from Blue Springs. They're twin brothers. They just both got drafted in like the 6th round. I was thinking about you
I didn't watch
last
any
night as I was watching.
Okay.
Yeah, two big daddies too, man. Two twin brothers, and they got adopted as babies. And this couple was just ridiculously cool. Their foster parents, and I guess their adoptive parents, they were talking about how they had to have like 4 refrigerators in the house, and one of them had to have a lock on it because all they would do was think and eat like 320 pounds.
Well, you know what? Whatever they did worked, right?
They're
going to be okay. This area of Missouri just values sports a whole lot. There's 2 high schools in Blue Springs, and one of them's taking home a state title in some sport. Each year. It's a big deal around here.
What do they? I mean, for a sports-minded town, and I would say Fairfax County is probably not as. I mean, it's got great sports, but it's not as sports-minded. It's very academic and right near the Pentagon, so we have a lot of those things going on. But in a sports-minded town, what are they saying about next year in general? Are you hearing any kind of scuttlebutt about?
Man, I don't feel like anybody really knows. Here in Kansas City, they just pushed the quarantine back to May 15th. I believe it's going to get pushed back again. So
we're June 10th.
I'm taking everything with a grain of salt right now. Just got to keep working like we're going to be back tomorrow. But I don't have any real expectations for that. I have events in September, October, and December. We have 3 canceled. I have those. I have to act like those are happening, but I don't. Things might not be back to normal by then. We might not be like in this quarantine phase, but wrestling's pretty contact sport.
Yeah.
And the venue we partner with, they're going to have regulations, so we just kind of have to wait and see and find ways to be productive right now to prepare.
Yeah. So right now for your events, are you really being able to dig some heels in and create some buzz about when it does happen? Because that'll give you some time that you probably didn't have before to really focus on the promotion and getting that out there.
Yeah, so the first event we have is in September. It's a Super 32 early entry event. It'll only be year 3. It's a pretty small event. We treat it as this is an opportunity for kids to get back on the mat and the good kids to make sure they can register for Super 32. The 2 after that are 2 of our bigger events. fall brawl, which we're adding
Yeah.
a girls duels division this year. So we're going to focus on getting teams for there, and kind of our big daddy is that Kansas City Stampede,
Yeah.
and that's growing too on both the boys and girls side. There's going to be a little adjustment in the format.
Is that the second week in December or
it's
the third
right
week?
before Christmas, the third, December 18th and 19th this year. We're really happy with how it went last year. Kind of the team that has been running it since its inception. They're, all their kids are done wrestling, and they're taking a step back, and so Grow Wrestling is jumping in there, and I think the adjustments that we're going to make are going to make the event stronger and more exciting, and we're really pumped for that one. I was telling Zeb the other day, I think it's going to be in the mix for being a top tournament in the next 3 years or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The venue, Hy-Vee Arena, is outstanding. The 2003 NCAAs were held there, and they put in like $45 million since then. So we can fit 20 mats on one surface, and if we needed to, we can fit another 12 on another surface they have. So
that's near like the Gaslight District, and is that Gaslamp District? What's it called?
Well,
there's like a really great restaurant.
You're thinking like Power and Light.
Power and Light. Oh, Gaslight. Yeah. That's out San Diego.
Yeah. Power and Light. That's where our host hotel is. It's like 5 minutes from there. There's a lot of stuff to do. Yeah. It's a really even the area where the venue is growing and becoming cooler. More restaurants and hotels. And if you remember, in 2003, were you at the NCAAs? It was like you don't want to go too many blocks away from the venue because you might get shanked. It's not like that anymore. But
did we go there together? Did we go to those districts together?
To
see what it was like? Do we go down two blocks over and be like, hey, let's go look, and then run away?
I don't know. I don't think we're tough enough for that.
No, we weren't. We weren't.
I mean,
we just get in the cab and drive around it a couple times just to see.
Yeah, no. So what's it been like for you, Brian? I know some major stuff that you were a part of got pulled out from under you. You've been on like this really amazing trajectory.
Yeah.
And I'll start when I met you in 2008. It was easy to tell, and Frank Popolizio, he was onto you. He knew you were awesome. Yeah. And you made his events unique, and since then you've just been growing and being part of bigger events, and so what's it feel like for you when some of these main events that you get to be a part of are no longer happening?
It's heart-wrenching. It tears your soul out. Or if Frank it takes a spoon and it literally takes my heart out with the spoon. But
not literally, Frank.
But every weekend I'll get a notification. Hey, World Classic. Hey, Olympic Trials. Hey, NCAA tournament. Hey, NHSCA. All these tournaments will pop up that I didn't delete from my calendar, and it's tough. It really is. But at the end of the day, I think I've come to a realization, and the money is what it is. It's not where my bread is baked, if you may, because I'm a teacher, and going to the tournaments was always fun for me because I was able to be a part of it and see friends, and that's my fellowship time. But it's actually been pretty cool to be home. Yeah. And I'm fingers crossed. We haven't burnt any bridges where those won't be there next year. And I don't know if you got some people saw it, but Jason Bryant and I got goofy the 3 days that NCAAs were supposed to be on. And
it got me through the weekend, Brian. It was so funny. It was so amazing.
I actually still have bruises from my kids throwing stuff at me and my wife, shooting daggers at me because they were finally at a point like, shut up.
I think it was my favorite part, getting the response from Mickey when you turned it back on again. She was being a trooper. You could tell she's being a trooper, but she kind of wanted to punch your nose.
Well, at one point, she finally turned around and just started throwing expletives at me. And she goes, you can't put that up. You can't put it up if I cuss a lot. And so I had to delete a couple pretty good ones. But, I'm hoping that those those wells won't dry up as we move forward, and that, as soon as we can get back into wrestling, we can get back into. I'm looking forward to the first event back when people are just their Joneses are so filled. They're like, oh, I'm back in the arena. Oh, I'm going to cheer louder than I ever have. I'm going to love wrestling more than I ever have. I'm hoping that happens, and I think it will. And I'm just hoping people realize when things are taken away, when you get them back, it makes it that much better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just talking about, when I met you at a Journeyman event, and man, I was lucky enough to. I've been lucky enough to be around Frank in his events and see like the energy and passion that he puts into events. So, man, I looked up to him before because he cared about me and he wanted me to do good and gave me opportunity. But now I'm a tournament director, and so I look up to him a whole nother way where I'm starting to understand what it takes. Tell me about how you got connected with Frank, as you knew him before I did, and what you think makes him special in his events. Extraordinary.
Well, can you hear my dog barking?
Absolutely.
She's killing me here. I tried to turn my mic off, but
it's not bad.
It's chaos. It's quarantine chaos, right? Yeah. It's what we do.
Quarantine.
So I live in D.C. area, and I announced for Mark Cody when he was at American University, and Frank Popolizio was an assistant. And so I announced their matches, and when the Northeast Duels the first year, it was like West Point, Binghamton. There were 4 teams. It was a quad. And then the next year they brought in Virginia Tech and UTC, so the Brands were there, and it was in a high school. And then they got Central Michigan, Iowa,
Okie State,
Minnesota,
and Lehigh, right?
Okie State, and Lehigh, and it just continued to grow. And we, he would do a halftime where he'd bring in dancing groups or singing groups or just something to make it an event. Something, and one thing I think he's got that promoter focus on is it's not just about the wrestling. It's about the community, and it's about making it cool at all times, and it's about playing music, and it's about telling stories that probably haven't been able to be told. And he really started it to try to start events in that capital region of New York. And so, one thing, and this about Frank, I could be not very good, and he would still be loyal. He's a loyal guy. He will give the shirt off his back. And, if you talk to him, you ask him, he'll take the shirt off now. He's been on the kettlebell thing. He's like all jacked up now. He's like, check it out. Look at these things. I've been picking up cows. But his events have spurred on a lot of people to want to do things like him. So whether it be the non-traditional bracketed tournament where you you don't have necessarily a champion, but you have some like-minded teams competing, and you get some people who can, compete that typically wouldn't from around the country. He sees things in a different way, I think. I just think he's so good for the sport. And now he's kind of changed the focus from the college thing to the international thing, where he's
unbelievable.
Making contacts. I was in Kazakhstan last year, and I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, I want you to go find this guy from Russia, and I want you to sit down and talk to him. Oh, and then, Azerbaijan, the Azeri guy is there. I need you to go give him what I gave you. And it was, it was like whatever it was. And I sat with him. He didn't speak very well. I mean, I don't speak any Azerbaijan, right? I don't speak any Farsi. I don't speak their language. He spoke very little English, and it was very awkward. But I said, Frank, and he was like, oh, Frank, yeah, hey. And so he creates relationships in a way that I've never seen it before.
Yeah, and man, what he provides, like, I still think it's not known enough as it should be, as this promotion that is providing so much opportunity for the kids here in the United States. Like, you can go up to New York and wrestle the world. And every year it gets better and better and better.
Well, you look at some of the names from the United States just in the last 10 years who have been a part of his events, and you look at the trajectory when you were watching world teams, and that's in the United States, and then you look at some of these kids who are now wrestling for Kazakhstan, Russia, Azerbaijan, Korea, all these different places that he brought in are now on their world and Olympic teams. And so you really do have that opportunity. And what always frustrates me, and it's not just about New York kids, it's about my own wrestlers, is that for $20 you can go and see that, or you can go and be a part of that, or you can go and wrestle in that. Whether you go and get your butt kicked, you're still being a part of it. And I think he does create those opportunities. Last year he came up with the whole family and we did dinner. And he was on Capitol Hill talking to different people trying to get visas. He was in different, countries, consulates, and talking to principal people within our government, trying to help create it. He's unafraid to knock on a door.
He's just nonstop. His energy is insane.
I will tell you, Joe, when Frank come to Virginia, Brian pay. When Brian go to New York, Frank pay.
Yeah. You know what he was good at is you go to his tournament, he'd, hey, Joe, come up a day and a half early. Then it's like, you're just up at 5 a.m. with him getting some signage, putting mats up. We did make some good videos in Lake Placid and at Northeast Duels.
I actually got a call about that last night. Someone was talking about, there was an article about Cale Sanderson not screaming in the corner. It was a good little article that someone put out, just how should a coach be in the corner. And at the end of it, the flow shenanigan, the don't be that coach was embedded into the article. And it every 2 years it'll pop back up and people will be like, that's the greatest thing, not realizing it was almost 9 years ago? It's crazy.
Right. I think we came up with that idea on the way to Lake Placid, and then we shot it that night, and
we did.
That was so much fun. Yeah, that one still works.
We had a bunch of them. We had the first year when we announced you guys going into the boards on the hockey rink, and then we went to Zigzags and rode in the bobsled.
Zigzags.
There was some, it was fun.
Crazy ride to Placid.
Crazy ride to Placid.
Yeah, good stuff.
The crop dusting was a good one.
Yeah. So
that's big boy.
Yep. I saw Mickey. I wanted to yell at her. What's up? I wanted to yell at Mickey when she walked by, but you were talking too much.
I know.
I missed that cream chip beef.
Oh, we had it for dinner the other night. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Breakfast. Do you guys ever do breakfast for dinner?
Oh yeah, I do the majority of the cooking here. I enjoy, like I said, Laura's really busy, and I enjoy cooking. And when you're at home, I take Jack to an empty soccer field each day, and then we're at home most of the day. We try to play outside, but I got to fill sometimes. So my cooking skills have improved.
What's your go-to these days? What do you?
You know what? I'm really good at a steak.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been using the Instant Pot a lot. I got lucky with that. So Mark Bader and Ashley got married, and 2 people got them the Instant Pot. It's like a pressure cooker.
Oh, we have it. I love it.
And so one of them made it over to our house. It's been like one of the best things ever.
If you look online, you can do anything in that. You can do rice. You can do soups. You can do
cheesecake.
All kinds of stuff. And we probably use it 3-4 times a week. It is the greatest thing in the world.
I have lunch the next day when I use that thing.
We have 3 large men. Well, I'm getting larger, but so we have 4 men and Mickey in the house, and we always feel like we're making too much food until we look and it's all gone, and we're like, man, we didn't make enough. Quarantine is crazy.
Yeah. So,
I wear sweatpants every day. I'm afraid to put on regular pants. I don't think they're gonna fit.
Well, my wife's pants, they don't fit anymore, but that's because she's 23 weeks pregnant.
Yes.
Which I love it.
Oh, you know it.
Yeah. All right, so back on topic here.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Tell me, how did the whole Golden Voice start? How did the announcing start? And I know you do cheerleading, you do triathlons, you do wrestling. How'd you get into this?
Dumb extroverted luck. I was I did my work study in college, and I worked in the athletic ticket office at George Mason University. And
Where you wrestled?
Where I
For
wrestled
Mike Moyer?
we call it the Mecca for Mike Moyer. Yeah, back in the day. By the way, Frank Beasley's doing one heck of a job there. He's doing a great job. So I was working the athletic ticket office. I was actually making calls for people to buy season tickets to basketball. I mean, that was pretty much my thing, taking credit cards. And the volleyball announcer quit. So he or she, I don't even remember, couldn't do it anymore. And this was in like 1993. And so I said, I'll do it, And so I started announcing the women's volleyball, and then did the men's volleyball, then men's soccer, then men's and women's soccer volleyball. Then when lacrosse came, I did women's lacrosse, married a women's lacrosse player. And so I just really, kind of was a fish in water and liked being on a mic and unafraid to be silly. And I was probably as most 18, 19-year-olds, I was probably a little bit over the top when I first got started and didn't know how to keep my voice and screamed a lot. And then after college, I started doing George Mason wrestling, and then University of Maryland wrestling, and then American University wrestling. Then started working doing Frank's events, and then did my dad and I actually did a couple of events where we worked the Mat Jam, which was the Southern Conference in the ACC Eastern Region, and then it just kind of blew up, and I started doing a lot of events. And then Jason Bryant started really crushing it, and he's a great friend of mine, and he worked for USA Wrestling, and so when he would do an event, he would say, "Can we bring in Brian?" And so, he's really knowledgeable, and he's very good at what he does, and so he brings me along. Ken Berger, same type of thing. He started bringing me along to do wrestling stuff, and then it was marathons and triathlons, and so I work a lot of marathons and triathlons just because I feel like I probably don't make people mad, and I like to be a part of, and I'll help roll up the mats, or I'll help clean up the event, and just being a part of the community. So that's how it all went.
Nice. I know this is a tough question when people ask me, but do you have like any memories that just are extra special to you or stick out?
There's so many, but I would say,
besides sharing a hotel room with me.
Well, that was probably the greatest, especially in that single bed, but we won't talk about that. But no, probably,
the Golden Eagle? Is that the Golden Eagle? I won't say the next one.
Sorry. So probably doing the first event that I did in Madison Square Garden, which was not the NCAAs, was pretty cool. That one was awesome, and then doing the NCAAs at Madison Square Garden was amazing. And then 2017, going to Paris and doing the broadcast for the Snyder-Saged Live match, and just being a part of that was probably, some of the greatest, some of the big events, like when Zeke Moisey pinned Gilman in the semis.
Yeah.
And I was in that. I was one of the doing ESPN at the time for the ESPN3. So little things like that, where when people ask, "Where were you when?" I can say, "Oh, I was right here."
They flung sweat on me.
Yeah. So those events, I would say probably outside of wrestling, the finish line of the Marine Corps Marathon. My first couple years I did it, they brought me in for the last 3 hours when people, the wounded warriors are coming and coming over. The people with flags, the people carrying each other over the line, things like that are highly emotional. How about you? If you had to say as a broadcaster, as a person doing content, is one that makes your hair still stand up?
In 2008, I was there for when Saitiev beat Murtazaliyev to make his third Olympics.
Yeah.
His third Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. All those Russia trips were
those
really,
are amazing.
really cool.
Krasnoyarsk, your favorite one?
The Kras, that was pretty fun. Bader was there. But you know what? Several times when I went by myself, it was really scary, but then also, it was really cool. Some of those times I'd stay at a hostel for 10 days in a row, which, I realized people only stay at hostels for like 2 days in a row, but just batch after batch of people that are traveling around the world going through. So by day is watching the World Championships. By night it's hanging out with people from all these different countries. It got exhausting because it's like, all right, wake up at 6, go to the venue, get there early to use the internet. Wrestling goes all day long. Go home, tell myself it's time to go to bed, but somebody from the Czech Republic's like, now let's go to this bar. And go out till 2, yeah. And then you shouldn't, but it's also like a really, really cool experience in meeting cool people, and then rinse and repeat. That trip, that was a 2010 World, so it was a little bit. I was the only one from Flow there, but there was some other. Jason Bryant was there, and USA Wrestling was there. But I remember I was so exhausted at the end of the trip. Second to last night? Second to last night? I'm sitting there, and there's David Taylor's dad. He's in the stands. I'm like, what's he doing here? I say hi, and this is, Flo had no money, so I think I'd lost like 15 pounds and had no sleep. He takes me out to dinner that night, and then finds out, turns out he's flying the airplane home that I'm taking home the next day, and he takes me in the cockpit. Then I'm also first class. It's the only time I was ever on international first class, and I'm just like wasted, tired.
Yeah.
And I get on there, and there's like a ice cream sundae buffet. I had a steak dinner and a salmon dinner. My chair turned into a bed. It was like the only time I was like, let's do it again. Let's head back over. It was an end to a tough trip. It was a great trip for a lot of reasons, but it was a bad Worlds for USA Wrestling.
Oh, yeah. How about London? Was that a pretty good trip for you?
Yeah.
Hello there. I'd like to meet my friend Joe.
Yeah. Sev and I talked about it for a bit the other day. Obviously, meeting my wife at the Olympics was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Super cool experience. What I was telling Zach was like, I knew at the end of the trip, which I thought this was it. It was just 30 days, kind of like this exotic cool thing, and but we were at the actual USA freestyle post-Olympic party. We had 2 Olympic champions, and then Coleman Scott got a medal. And all I could think about is how I wanted the party to end so that I could go spend a few more hours with this girl before.
I remember calling you there and also talking to you when you got home, and I wanted to know about wrestling. You didn't want to talk about the wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, stop being such a softie.
Yeah.
Worked
I remember
out.
It was. Let's see. We had started talking a bit. After the Olympics, we started doing WhatsApp and stuff like that, and then I was actually at the Reno TOC in December, and she had told me she bought a ticket to come see me, and oh yeah, on January 18th of the next month.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that has to be the best experience that came due to my career following.
Besides, 2008 at the Northeast Duels when you got to hang out. We got to hang out for the first time. Clearly, that was a good time. Clearly, that was good.
I'll tell you what. Every time I got to go to Albany, though, the one thing about Frank's event is, it felt different than covering other events. I knew when I was going to land, and people that, maybe it took a year or two, but I considered like family to me are going to pick me up, and we're going to have a big family dinner, and we're going to go to a great event.
We had 2 couches that went like this. You would sleep on this couch, and I would sleep on this couch.
Oh, yeah.
I sat on that couch last year, and I was like, oh, I'm home.
The memories.
I love that couch.
Yeah. I was actually on that couch. It was for the New York State tournament. I was on that couch when I heard Frank running around. I'm like, no way, it's 6 o'clock already, time to get up. No, it's 2:30, and Frank's wife is going into labor.
That's awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah, I was there. And so Frank called Sean Miller, and Sean picked me up and went there, and Frank went and had his first kid.
Had Luca. That's crazy.
Luca, who I see pictures of now, and he's like grown up.
He's big. He's big.
He's wrestling now.
They have their new little farm out there, and he was working the backhoe. He was knocking trees down and like driving the bobcat around the whole compound.
That kid's gonna grow up to be a man's man. Frank is about as manly as I know.
Yeah.
His farm and his equipment and his guns and his wrestling and.
You share a very similar political views to him as well. I like
oh my God! You know what though? That's a great thing. Frank and I agree on absolutely nothing, and we could be yelling at each other in the car, and then he'd be buying me dinner 20 minutes later at one of the 3 restaurants we always went to.
Yeah, I think if you didn't argue with him, he'd be really pissed. He would be angry if you weren't like, yeah, you're right, Frank. What are you talking about? I'm right. No, you can't do that.
I appreciate it because, it's even hard to go on, like, Facebook these days because people, we're allowed to disagree with each other and still not be rude to each other.
Love each other, right?
Love each other. We're allowed to. We don't have to agree on everything to be friends. So it's really hard on me. Right now, it's so. I stay out of it. I stay out of it as much as I can now, just because
You can't win.
No.
I have a very similar with my own family. We have our very, very, very liberal side and our very, very, very conservative side so far that I think they can see each other in the middle. But we're not allowed to talk about any politics at any dinner because it ends up being Hatfields and McCoys within the same last name. It gets to be a little bit wild.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even make any sense anymore. I always think like the sign of being an adult is being able to understand. If I was debating Frank on something and what he said made sense, I think that I'm a man enough to say, I think you're right. I think I was wrong. And I just think not enough people do that these days. Like it's okay to adjust what your idea on something because now some more light shed on it.
Sure.
But I don't know. People just can't do that anymore.
No, it's better just to say, "Oh, how nice," is what my father-in-law said. Yeah. Oh, how nice. Bless his heart. And when you know that means, shut up.
So here's something. Tell everybody the story of when you delivered one of your kids. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I still have the van.
I think I rode in the seat.
You did. You rode the seat. So it's funny. Before I talk about that story, it's an older van, and we took the seats out, and we use it kind of just to transfer materials, or it's just an old beat up van. And Mickey, one of our local car dealers, said they could do cash for clunkers, so they were going to give her a good amount of money for it. And Justice was like, "No, that's my birth van. You can't sell that van." And he was seriously, really, just very upset. So, baby number 3, let's kind of go into that. Baby number 1, Tyler, he came about a week early. Baby number 2, Alex, came 2.5 weeks early. Baby number 3, Justice, she was having some contractions, and so we went to our doctor, and they said, "No, just go home. You're only 5 centimeters dilated." And we're like, "Wait, time out. Like, babies come fast in our house." And
Mickey knows what she's doing at this point. Right?
Yeah, she's like, "I feel it. I know my body." And so we went home, And she was like, just kind of spiteful. She's like, I'm not going until I'm good and ready now because they told me I couldn't go. Just kind of like, you know. So we're laying in bed, and she wakes up, and she's like, oh, uh-oh. So she went to the restroom. She went to the bathroom and came out, and she was like, we got to go. So it's 11:39 at this point, p.m., 11:39 p.m. And I called my neighbor, guy, Rob Johnson, awesome dude. He is walking to our house while we're getting in the van and we're on the road. Within a half a mile, she's like, you got to pull over. And I started laughing. And I was like, yeah, come on. Hell no. So she goes, you need to pull over. And
no!
Don't pull over. So I pull over to the side of the road. I have an old flip phone. I'm like on the flip phone, call 911, and I walk out, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, no. So I was able to wrangle her pants off, put her feet up on the dash, and, within a minute, there's Justice. Man, pops out. I'm like juggling him. He's slippery. Cord's still attached. And we 911, I'm still talking to them, and they're like, sir? And then I'm like, you think insurance is going to cover this? And and so we had a neighbor who was she was an OB nurse, and so she had given us like a bulb syringe and some other stuff, and so I bulb syringe Justice his throat, make sure there was no mucus in there. I wrapped him up in a pair of the best sweatpants, like those favorite sweatpants. I know, it's a dagger. Wrap him up sweatpants, put him on his chest. The umbilical cord's still connected, and within probably 6 minutes or less, so it was a pretty good time. The ambulance came. We were parked in somebody's driveway, which is the crazy thing, and they never came out to check on us. And that we were like, ah, like screaming, and it was mass chaos. And so she's still holding Justice, and the 911 people come, and she gets out of the car, and she's just, covered up with a towel, really, and they took a scalpel, and I didn't have to cut the umbilical cord. They cut the umbilical cord, and we walked into the ambulance and went to the hospital. And, doctors did their thing, and she got all cleaned up and stitched up. And then this is the part that really sticks in my mind. We're sitting and laying down, and by the way, so we woke up at 11:39. Justice was born at 11:54. That's the amount of time from the time we woke up to the
wild.
time. And we knew that because I called the 911 people the next morning because we didn't know the day he was born. We didn't know if it was November 2nd or November 3rd. And November 2nd, it was actually election night. So we finished watching all the election stuff, and we were going to name him George W. because that was but we didn't. So we named him Justice. But we ended up putting in a DVD, which was Big Fish. In that movie, when everything is bigger than life, right? Yeah. We were laughing because the first scene is when he was delivered and like shot out of mom and slides down the floor at the hospital. We're like, we are Big Fish. You can't make this stuff up. But I did. I called the 911 people, and they actually sent us the cassette tape and the transcripts from the 911 and the gal. Cool. I ended up probably for his first 4 years sending her Christmas cards because this chick was just amazing on the phone, and they were really gracious to us. But yeah, so his birthplace is the corner of Balls Ford Road and Devlin Road, and I should be on the birth certificate as the doctor, but I'm not. They wouldn't let it happen. So that's the story.
I love that story. So let me ask you this. Which first I'll say Mickey's the true champ. She's the one that went through all that. But I'm sitting here talking to you, and you're a pretty important piece. What was going through your mind when you knew that was going to happen? You're going to be there by yourself. Was it like like an autopilot, or was it, what was it you're going? What were you feeling?
I think your mama bear and papa bear, your instinctive parental, the horns go up and you go to it because what at that sense what are you gonna do? Are you gonna run away from it, or are you gonna fight? And that we ended up just she was like, this is gonna happen, and as I'm talking to 911, there's the head, and it you think about it in the wild. I mean, the animals are just born, they drop on the ground, they're cleaned up, and then they're walking. So it was scary. It was really scary. But fortunately, it was our third, and fortunately, we were blessed with the fact that he just came right out. Cord wasn't around the neck, I can't imagine. So one of my best friends had the perfect birth, no problems, and they had a lot of complications. Fortunately, Sammy's fine, but, what could have happened didn't. So it was an easy birth. It was an easy delivery, and it's a great story. But at the time, we just did it. And fortunately, we're both health teachers. Fortunately, we were, we had done it. This was number 3. But looking back, it's still scary as can be.
Yeah, that's cool. That's wild. I hope that doesn't happen to me.
You call me.
Instead of calling 911.
Yeah, just call me.
Brian,
I'll talk you all right there.
Here we go.
Put me on video chat. Put me on FaceTime.
I didn't have anything like. I'll tell you what happened. When Laura went into. Let's see. We got up. We went to the gym. Laura wanted to go to the gym, even though she's about to pop, and we're still like 4 days away. We get out of the car to go to the gym. I didn't sleep that night. I'm like, I really don't want to go to the gym. And I hear something. Laura makes a noise, and I come around the corner, and the doctors told us this isn't what happens, but I said she had like wet shirt, and I'm like, she spilled. And I look up, and it was like, I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, get in the car! And so I started to drive off. And then I slammed on the brakes so I could go take a picture of it on the ground so I could send it to Bader. Bader, you're not going to believe this. That's where Laura's water broke.
Yeah, when you're in production, you have to do everything in production, you know?
I also, the only other thing I remember is that, I started, I wouldn't say panicking, but I'm like revved up. So we drive home. I call my buddy Max, his wife delivers babies, or she's a nurse, and I'm like, all right, what do I do? She's like, you have time, pack everything up, just go to the hospital. I'm still kind of freaking out. We pack everything up, and then I stop real quick. There's a smoothie place right next to a breakfast taco place, and I'm like, Laura, I'm going to get you some food. And I'm like sprinting from one to the other, and I almost got hit by a truck, like in the parking lot, because I'm not looking, and I'm like, Joe, you could have just made this way worse. Time to chill out. And then, that was that.
Oh, man. Yeah,
Anyway.
Babies are, the whole process, I love it, but, from start to finish, I think it's just the coolest process in the world. But, man, right there at the end, it is, your first one especially, I remember with Tyler just, walking in, and I'm expecting to have the mask and the whole thing, and they're like, no, you're good, just hang out, and just be your cheerleader, we got this. Yeah. It's not like the movies, by any means.
No. Well, one more. Coming our way end of September.
I know, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And you told me it's a little girl?
Yep.
Yes.
Brianna. No.
Yeah.
No. We don't know yet. I tell you, I want it to be Laura. My wife won't have it. She says
Hazarda.
Hazarda?
Yeah, Hazarda. It is from Russia. We call her Hazarda.
Olga.
Oh, Olga.
All right.
Oh,
okay.
Man. So, what else? Everything else good?
Everything's good. I know what I wanted to ask you about. I haven't watched them yet, but I want to. So you've been doing some podcasts and stuff. Moving on from the pregnancy stuff. With the college coaches in Virginia, where can I find that stuff?
So, I had watched some of the USA Wrestling stuff and some of the things you had been doing, and so I was sitting around. And I said, we'll do quarantine conversations. And so I just called up all Virginia wrestling coaches. We'd go on Zoom, and they're on the Virginia-USA Wrestling. We just have a website we're working with on YouTube. And like Rosh Jatomer from St. Christopher's, Rob
I
Prevish.
love him.
Yeah, they're both great. They've been doing some technique, little things that you can be doing during quarantine. I do my quarantine conversations. Jack Harcourt, our executive director, has been doing some stuff where he's doing some challenges for kids, and they can win some cool USA Wrestling swag. So yeah, it's Virginia-USA Wrestling. The VAWA one was already taken, so that's where you can find it. And I've been posting them up on Facebook and Twitter on my page.
Nice. You've been having fun doing it?
I have.
Great.
And anytime you can build relationships with the coaches, that's a super cool thing.
Yeah.
And I think we lose that sometimes, especially Division I. I think there are a lot of people and teams who lose that opportunity to have those great relationships. The fans don't. The wrestlers don't, but I think sometimes coaches forget.
Yeah. Cool. You said, is it quarantine or quarantine?
With a Q.
Quarantine.
Quarantine. Is it caramel or caramel?
Quarantine.
Quarantine conversations with Virginia college coaches.
Sounds just like that in Missouri too.
Yeah, we do have 3 teams now that have women's teams. So Liberty University has a club women's team. Ferrum College has a women's team, and Emory and Henry is starting a women's team. And I think it's getting bigger. We still haven't. I'm going to be on a task force, I believe, with our Virginia High School League to try and.
Not in Virginia yet, huh?
It's not here yet.
Get with it. It's the game changer in Missouri.
It's awesome.
This is the year 2. Year 1 was impressive. Year 2, so many more girls. The wrestling at the state tournament was just grew so much, and seeing from a tournament director perspective, seeing the participation, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
It needs to happen. Brian, get that done.
What can we
do? What can we do to help? I'm gonna get on a video interview with Brooke Zumas, who's doing good stuff in Pennsylvania. But what can people do to help get this introduced to every state?
I think we need to. You need to give benefits to the high school associations. I think people come in and they say this has to happen now, and the people who are not in the know dig their heels and they say, no, like that's just more money. That's just more. They don't see the benefit. So I think we really need to go out, not the us against them, not the you need to do this for us, but we need to give them the thought that they're making the decision that's great for the state. They did that in Pennsylvania. Brooke did that with Pat Tossi. They've been busting their butt getting it done. We have our Virginia women's wrestling. We have a nice organization with USA Wrestling, and Sarah Bahora, or her maiden name is Fulp Allen, Sarah Fulp Allen. She's in the state. Sally Roberts is with Wrestle Like a Girl is just up in Washington, D.C., so we're going to get them to help Bill Swink. And we have Alex Santos, who has had great girls come out of his program. I think we're going to be able to make it happen. I think we just need to really show benefits and say, this is a sport that's an Olympic sport, and women need to be involved.
Yeah. That attitude that you're talking about, it reminds me of like wrestling coaches trying to get football players, and they just go, well, wrestling's going to make your guy such a better football player versus, man, your boys would really help my wrestling team,
Right.
And kind of just switch that position on it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think there's so many reasons why it's going to be great when it's in 50 states.
Yeah, and I think it's going to make wrestling that much better. And I've had the fortune to coach a couple of women, and man, they're just seeking the knowledge. They're You got to coach a little bit differently, and for the good of a lot of programs, you got to change the way that you act. You got to change the way that you react, and your leadership model has got to change. And I think it's a good change for wrestling.
Yeah. I am on Tuesday. I'm interviewing. Do you know who Amit Elor is?
No.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing. So when I was out in California coaching, this girl came in. She was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, but she could like drill with me, and she could like arm spin, like hit like some really cool stuff, like, and then she would go just destroy everybody at these events. Well, not this last CIF tournament, but the one before California State tournament. She ended up this 44-0 with 44 first period pins. She got a cadet. Was it a cadet world silver or bronze? I think bronze. And then she didn't wrestle in California last year, but you're gonna hear a lot about this girl. She'll be on Tuesday. She also she trains with Valentine Kalika, and now I'm seeing her. Besides, she's just super technical. Now she looks like she could. Yeah, it's amazing. Watch Tuesday. I'll put it up. Amit Elor. You're going to hear that name a lot, I believe. She's going to be a world champion
Very cool.
someday.
I
Yeah.
probably, as soon as I see her, I'm going to be like, oh, I totally know who that is. Because as I get a little older, my short term falls apart sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Well, hey, Brian, I'm gonna. Hey, you want to see?
seeing you.
You want to see if Jack's back here real quick? I think I hear my mom, even though she's social distancing. She comes and gets close. I'll show you this little setup. My wife might be mad if she's in her bikini.
Oh,
Check this
that
out.
would be a
She
shame.
is. But check out this. Can you see the bounce house?
The bounce house. Nice.
And then over here. Hold on.
Hello, Laura.
Yeah, Brian says hi. And then, so we got this bounce house, and then check that out. Sprinkler.
Oh, I'm losing you.
Amazing.
I'm losing the.
Oh,
I do
no.
like that.
I better.
Rainbow.
Oh, hey, Jack, you want to say hi to Brian? He said no thanks.
No thanks. I'm
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, well,
I got my bounce
he
house.
doesn't ever, he's not allowed to go close to Grandma, but man, it's really hard on him. He doesn't understand why he can't go to Grandma and Papa's house.
Right.
Um,
And then they start asking themselves, did I do something wrong? And you have to just really sell it that this is the good thing. Oh, I love your painting behind you, behind the monitor.
2012 Russian Nationals. That's
no
the
kidding.
year so there was that huge fight. And
yeah.
Saitiev, Bader got it on camera. Saitiev's jacking up fans in the crowd.
I remember.
Super cool. Yeah, but they cheated. It was Godoyev, I think. They just robbed him because they wanted it to be Saitiev versus Sargush. It was all over
Right.
every poster.
Right.
But Godoyev clearly won the match, and
Yeah.
stinking Ruskies.
It's some good drama, though. It makes for good television.
Yeah. All right, Brian.
All
Let me
right.
get back there. Do some bounce housing with Jack. You should see how high I can double bounce his butt.
Oh, yeah. I love it. You gotta get Laura to video that.
Yeah. So, hey, you got anything else for me, man?
I don't. I'm just happy that we got to connect and get to see your beautiful face. And if I can do anything for you, I'm always here.
I appreciate it, Brian. It's so good to talk to you. I really want to get out there. I was talking to Sewell, Tanner Sewell, yeah, and he's been wanting to put something together so that I can come out and
Cool.
mostly I just want some of that cream chip beef.
Mm.
But tell your family I said hello, and let's do this again sometime. It's really good to
Anytime.
catch up with you.
I love it. Okay, great talking
All right,
to you,
Brian.
Joe.
Love you, buddy.
Love you, man.
Bye.
See you.